Mr. Stephen Andry. It's always a pleasure to talk to you again. How you doing, sir?
Good morning to you, Rob, out in sunny California, Colorado, wherever you are.
It's the forgotten time zone out here in Colorado. As we record this, like this week we had snow and now we're getting sun, and I'm excited to go for a run outside this weekend, hopefully in the nice warmer weather, and it's changes seasons every other day here.
Well, but it is producing results. Did you see I just saw it on the news recently that the longer lifespans are out west.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So all these red states are getting killed with shorter lifespans. So I'm guessing the snow's paying off.
It's probably the drier climate. We're actually one of the more active states in the country as well, because there's so many nice things to do out here in Colorado outside. Where I remember my time in Ohio, there wasn't a lot of things to do outside except for like 3 or 4 months out of the year. And then you try to not get swept away by mosquitoes.
So thanks for rubbing it in, bro.
Hey, you're welcome. Hey, glad to help anywhere I can. I'm an expert at one thing out here.
I'm going to rub it in that I live in Colorado.
Hey, I got one advantage on you, Steven.
This is true.
So, in our last episode, if you listen to it, I mentioned that my wife had dreams of me dancing with like someone else, one of her friends in one of her dreams. So she woke up kind of mad at me. But she knew she wasn't mad at me, but it was just like, she knew it was a dream. But what she did, and so we talked about that a little bit in our last episode, but what I didn't want to tell you, because that night or the next night, I actually it was my date night for her, and I took her to dancing lessons. And I already had it scheduled, and I didn't want to ruin it for her by going, hey. So we took dancing lessons, and we actually then signed up for like the beginner package. So we've gone to our intro lesson and then 2 other lessons, Stephen, to learn how to dance.
And let's be clear for our listeners, Rob. Yeah. We're trying to get you to learn how to dance.
Correct. No, my wife's great. But here's what I would say, like on a relationship basis. I know you're the relationship expert out of the two.
That's why I wanted to pull that out.
Yeah.
I wanted to protect your wife a little bit.
Oh, she's great. And so what's funny is that, or what's great about it, is that we're both really learning from scratch something together. It's not like I'm trying to teach her how to play tennis or she's trying to teach me how to swim or it's like we both don't know the rules of dance.
Oh, wow.
And so it's like we're both learning, and we have a great instructor, and so we're laughing for these 40 minutes together about the whole time, trying not to step on each other's toes.
And you're feeling more connected all the time, aren't you?
It's actually one of those things I did just because I love my wife and I know she wanted to dance. And we didn't actually have a dance at our wedding because we had a COVID wedding, so there was no real reception. So I was like, well, this will be kind of a fun way to sort of substitute that or replace. And now all of a sudden it's like she's telling all her sales managers, because she works for a big global tech company in HR. She's telling all her sales leaders, take your wife dancing to dance lessons. You won't regret it. And so
I might take that note from you, man, and do something with it. I have a little backup question here, though.
Yeah.
You guys in the same room when you got married?
Wait, what?
You said it was a COVID wedding. I was just wondering, were you guys virtual?
Yeah, no, we had to do a Zoom wedding. That would have been hysterical. Hey, honey, I love you, and I know we're getting some big day.
We'll see you in 2 years.
I don't feel safe being in the same room as you right now. Oh, yeah, that would have.
Oh, we can laugh at the pain.
Oh, yeah, that would have gone over like a. That would have been funny.
Yeah.
Oh, so. But
what a day.
Yeah, no. So I highly encourage it. Whether it's you watch YouTube videos to learn if you don't have the money to go get lessons, but you know what? Now we laugh while we cook in the kitchen together, and I try to dance with her.
But you're touching a profound truth, Rob.
Okay.
There's a reality that when we suffer together, we bond at deeper levels. Right? There's joy in it, but there's this learning of new.
Yeah.
So this kind of place of, it really does help connect. So way to go. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart, bro.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you,
sir. Take care of your wife and take care of yourself and build into your marriage.
Oh, we have a great time doing it, and I'm new at this marriage thing. We're celebrating 3 years here this spring, so and 3 years in a row. I want to add to.
3 years in a row, 2 years in the same building.
Yeah, right. That that's actually sounds like a good Saturday Night Live skit during, like, a rehash. Let me tell you about our wedding.
Yeah, let's go.
That's awesome, Stephen.
Oh, man. Sometimes we have to laugh instead of cry.
Absolutely. So, Steve, one of the things we want to talk about is a little bit weightier today. At least, like, we were just talking about this before recording. To me, it always seems weighty talking to you about the big things you deal with, because I'm not in it every day. I don't see it every day, and you're in the thick of it every day. And my guess is you've gotten used to carrying it, where I'm looking at going, oh my goodness. So,
yeah, the heaviness of what we see every day on a day in, day out basis gets pretty, it can create a hopelessness if you don't have good people around you, as well as a good process to walk people through. Because the reality is we see a lot of healing, a lot of growth, a lot of hope over time. But there's a saying that one of my mentors used at one time, and you'll hear it fairly regularly with each other here in the office or amongst staff. It's this idea that you can't make this stuff up.
yeah.
And it's not always that easy of a language. Sometimes if it's really painful, because you think you hear it all and then you hear this, and it's like, oh my gosh, you lived through that? It's like, oh yeah, that's out there too? So it's like the secrets we keep really haunt. And, one of the things we deal with on a regular basis is trying to help people walk in truth. The whole purpose of this podcast is to learn to walk in truth, to learn that secrets really do haunt, and that there is a lighter load when we just speak truth. Now, the pushback that we hope we get from clients or even these listeners is totally open to debating and processing the roots of that truth, the is it really truth type of question, right? So, we hear it all over the place. My truth may not be your truth.
Yeah.
The reality is there is an authentic truth. There can only be one truth. Our ability to value each other's perspectives and move forward and debate and respectfully communicate to each other, we both learn in that process. And one of the goals of this whole podcast is to help that happen, especially within communities, faith communities included, marriages, individuals, family systems, all that, because there's just so much that we have taken for granted or just believed as truth that really isn't. One of the things we're going to talk about today is this whole idea of pornography, right?
Yeah.
Now, we're going to touch on it today. We're not going to we could talk about it for hours with data, and I'll present some data today. But over the course of this podcast, we really want to help unpack the impact that's having on our culture, as well as the escalated spaces. And we don't talk about it. We may touch on it, but the processes we use aren't often as available as we need them to be. There are some wonderful ones out there, but as Dr. Patrick Carnes said, the tsunami's coming, the tsunami's here, and we're basically in a rowboat.
Oh, wow.
And
So
those of us in the rowboat are those with the information. So,
Wow. So when you think of like pornography and the impact it does on relationships, like how is it to me it seems like almost like a root cause of a lot of other issues, because
I would flip that. It's a symptom of other issues.
it's a symptom. Explain that to me.
So, we look at addiction and alcohol, drugs, and pornography and sexually compulsive behaviors. And in many cases, what they are is an attempt to numb the pain we're feeling.
Okay.
So there's this place in culture where we need to feel good all the time, right?
Yeah.
As well as there's this seeking of the rush. So there's kind of this double whammy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense there.
So you have escalating spaces, right? Over time, 2 beers just doesn't do it. I need a whole 6-pack. Over time, it needs to be a whole case or whatever, right? This
Okay.
the body starts to build resilience, so we need more to get the same rush or high. And eventually, we just start chasing the high. But the original space is usually multiple facets, but there's an original moment that starts that process going, or an original kind of authentic period that creates a need or a value for that drug, right? A child 8 years old is exposed to pornography and it hits his nervous system. Wow, that's curious. So when he starts to hit puberty, he remembers the arousal a little bit and moves into that, or he sees that dad values it and dad then helps him to understand it's not a big deal when it really is a big deal because dad doesn't understand the impact of that, right?
No, that's amazing to think about. And then it's like, so then in your practice, how do you, like, you go and look for like the root cause in someone's life of why they believe what they believe about pornography?
Well, we have multiple phases.
Okay.
The first phase is we've got to stabilize it.
Okay.
Okay. The second phase
When you
is
say stabilize, though, like, what do you mean? What does that look like?
stabilize the behavior, hopefully eliminating it, creating a level of sobriety into recovery.
Okay.
And I do separate those, and we'll get to that at another time. But it's this idea that you can't have the drug in the nervous system. You've got to detox it
Okay.
so that you can create healthy.
Okay.
And then after we establish that, we move into a place where we're dealing with, like, you don't need an aspirin if you don't have a headache. If you take away the headache, you don't need the aspirin.
Okay.
So we take away the pain, we help people understand it's okay to feel, and all of a sudden you see this resilience, this kind of, what do you mean it's okay to feel? Well, you've been numbing your feelings, and many people have been telling us, if I, in church, and I go to, I have a Judeo-Christian worldview, and there have been many churches where I've heard, don't worry, don't fear, right? Don't necessarily trust your emotions. God says this, God says that. And they're very light views and often damaging views that don't really allow the person to feel. So we even hear that, like if I heard from my father to the football field, right? Suck it up or I'll give you something to cry about, right? Get up off the field, go knock him down, just get angry about it. You're going to cry, you're a sissy, right? Now, where is that, and what is that message to us? Well, to men especially, we've been wounded around this idea that you're not allowed to feel, and real manhood isn't, you don't cry. In women, they're just being a woman. But in both cases, they're not given an emotional language. They're not given an emotional awareness. So they don't know how to interact with the language of their nervous system. So when we heal and help people detox, we're trying to give them the language of that pain that's in that nervous system that's created, intentionally designed with a purpose to offer that kind of information.
So when you're trying to stabilize someone then from like a porn addiction, is it very much just like do you give them tools to help them out?
It's very much a task-driven model. It's not my own. I have a certification that I highly respect, highly value our kind of governing body around that. And they do a wonderful job of providing us with tools. Now, we do take them in our practice, and we have molded them as my partner and I and our staff have found it productive.
Yeah.
But that's with the blessing of our leadership and stuff like that, the people in our practice.
So
and there's a wonderful network around that.
So you get past stabilization, like you said, you're trying to get the toxins out of the nervous system.
Right.
What's
It's the time.
What's the next step after that? Is it, to help them on the road to recovery from a porn addiction?
Well, first of all, it's not just a porn addiction. There's multiple facets to
That's
that, which
fair.
we want to expand. No. I know, but that is where most of the focus tends to be.
Yeah.
So that's a fair statement. We just really want to expand our thinking around that.
Okay.
But when we stabilize, we're moving into a place where we're working with the individual as that drug is coming out. We're leveraging things like community, 12-step groups. There's a what we call Men's Healthy Sexuality here in our city. It's a phenomenal group created by a friend of mine it's basically 12-step on steroids that really ramps up this level of community and connection, which helps the nervous system because it wants that connection. What's really fascinating about addictions, including porn and beyond, is it isolates. It wants you to itself. Over time, you start to see people pulling away from healthy relationships.
That's interesting when you talk about like how when abusive relationships, I've heard, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you're the expert, like they start pulling the person like in their relationship away from their family and their friends. Is like, no, be around me more, don't be around your family, don't be around your friends. And that's actually a red flag when they start actually going, I mean, occasionally it's like, hey, I want some time with you, but yeah, make sure you make time for your family
Absolutely.
as well. If they're
Absolutely.
So
they're not safe with that person being an individual.
Yeah.
Well, there's a similar, like one of the processes we use is this idea of dialoguing with the addictive behavior. Okay. What we're doing is helping to understand that addiction is doing the exact same thing. It wants you all to itself. Come to me. I can take care of the pain. There's a statement in one of the books we read that it overpromises, underdelivers.
Oh, yeah.
And that is so true. It says, I can eliminate the pain. The reality is, though, when the high wears off, you've just binged on porn for 3 days, or maybe you've even escalated into the place of going to a massage parlor and getting a happy ending. You get into this place where, oh my gosh, the drug's off, and I feel more shame. I feel more of the intensity. The intensity is not there anymore in the moment because I'm distracted, but it's not gone. It's still in the nervous system because it's never really been healed and through the healing dissipated.
What's interesting when you talk about that, like I've never been in that situation, thankfully, with like the addiction to porn, but food's my vice, and sugars and cookies and stuff like that, where it's like, it's very similar. All of a sudden you go like, oh, I'm just going to have this dessert. This will make me feel better in this moment. And afterwards, like, and I'm
what did you just say?
What?
What did you just say?
Like
it'll make me feel better.
Correct. It's
better's not a feeling. It's a judgment. It's a measurement.
No, that's a great point. And so it's like, but if it's one of those, like, if you can't relate to this in like the porn industry or sexually or something, like I joke that I'm an emotional eater, but it's a truth. Like if I'm having a bad day, all of a sudden like that big bowl of ice cream at the end of the day looks way better.
Right. So let's play with what you're saying because they're just true. Yes, some people will use sugar. That is a very relevant addictive behavior going on in our culture. People drink a lot. And sex is a huge one, right? From over-sexualizing relationships to porn to other things. The idea of I've had a bad day, in and of itself, in my opinion, creates a bind. Because bad is a measurement. In my sessions, my clients will laugh at me. This 12-step group, MHS, I talk about, you'll see a lot of my clients say, oh, you're working with Steve? Oh, yeah. And they come in with me, right? And they laugh at this place because I'm very anal around language.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I'm very anal around is this idea of good and bad, positive, negative, right and wrong.
Okay.
Right? They're very, very absolute, either or. And many of the situations aren't even about, you didn't have a bad day, you had an uncomfortable day. There was stress in it. And we really look at it, is it healthy or unhealthy? Was it pleasant or unpleasant? But when you can say, wow, this day was just heavier. It was a more uncomfortable, stress-filled, wow, I just felt that loneliness today. What happened? You can get the information from it. right? We label our emotions way too quickly. And you did that just then. I had a bad day. Well, just for the record, I'm pretty sure you love your wife.
Absolutely.
I'm pretty sure whatever day that was bad had nothing to do with her. It had to do with work or something else.
Yeah.
Okay. So you didn't have a bad day. You had a day that had moments of discomfort, but you got to go to the arms of a one who loves you and feel some joy.
Absolutely.
Why do we catastrophize and brand the whole day? No. Let's be real with what's going on. And we have those ebbs and flows. Mm-hmm. And that even gives it, there's such a rabbit trail we could go on that's very relevant about how we can unpack that even more. Because sometimes that day isn't even about the day. Sometimes that day is what activated me emotionally was that a client reminded me of this that happened 3 years ago. I just wasn't aware of it.
Oh.
Or it's something he said that activated something in me that is kind of some unresolved grief, right? So we start to unpack our bodies that way. And boy, you just see connection all through the place. And you start to see the need for this medicating decrease. You're going to need less cookies when you're more attuned to what's going on in your body.
I don't know if I like that idea. I like cookies.
Then you can choose, not be have to. No, I'm not nothing against ice cream and cookies. Trust me. But
Well, like it's like anything else. Is like my wife and I talk about this. My wife works in HR, so we have a lot of like I wouldn't say as heavy as the conversations, but like what are the motivational and it's like decisions. Like what's the intention behind the decision? Is there's a value to that where it's like, are you having dessert for me because
right.
it's enjoyable after dinner? You're enjoying it with. Like my wife and I, we made a decision a while back too. It's like to try not to go out to eat as much unless we're going out. Like, hey, we're going out with Steven and his family,
right?
Because like, why we don't need to go out to eat, but like, if it's in part of community, let's do that.
Right. And you know, I love a great bowl of ice cream like the next guy. We have
Right.
a wonderful place here in town.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
just amazing. And if I go there every day because I need it as part of my routine, it's that beer that we need at the every evening, right?
Yep.
These places, I have a friend that every night has a couple of bourbons.
Ooh.
Now, to his credit, we do lunch 2 or 3 times a month.
Okay.
Not lunch, breakfast, excuse me. And I respectfully brought that up. You know, I'm a little concerned. I know you enjoy bourbon now and everything against a good bourbon, whatever. Mm-hmm. But every night you seem to have at least 2 or 3. Just, hey, keep an eye on that.
Yeah.
And he was like, wow, thank you. And I said, I hope you're okay with me sharing that. He goes, no, I want you to be that direct. Because it wasn't something he was aware of. And that's about his integrity and his willingness to be open to that. And I want to give him that credit. But there's these places we don't realize we start to avoid what we're feeling.
Yeah.
The whole goal of this is to help that increase.
Well, yeah, there's probably a fine line there because he probably enjoys the bourbon, but what's he trying to mask with the bourbon?
Right.
It's like, it's one thing if you go like, I just enjoy, like, my wife enjoys a red wine. If every day after work she's like, I just got to have a glass of wine, I'd be like, hey,
if I got to have it, there's an issue.
Correct. It's like if you can say no to it. Like, so a lot of the terms I've learned on my Googling and YouTube and my internet degree on what we're doing here.
Trying to catch up with those counselors that are already
Yeah,
done?
right. I try not to go to WebMD. Not that I have anything against them, but I feel like it brings on a hypochondriac type. Oh yeah, I've had that. Yeah, I've had
it's in business.
Yeah, and so is the idea of like, would you like these addictions when they become in like, how's the terminology where it starts impacting your ability to do your tasks of daily living?
Yeah, there are clear signs that you're starting to have an issue around addiction. Now, for the record, I don't do that power struggle.
Yeah.
I don't get into that debate.
Yeah.
Most of the time they're in my office, they may not have all the criteria for addictive behavior, but I will often say, is it becoming more compulsive?
Oh.
Is it creating issues in your life? There's a reason you're sitting here. You may not see it a problem, but your wife does.
Yep.
Right? So there's discord in your marriage. What's more important? The bowl of ice cream the beer, the porn site, and those are not the same level, get that, or your wife in that marriage. And then it just starts to, whoa, okay. Because you do see times where people will have the bourbon over having a conversation with their wife.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see that, I don't really want to be talking to you right now. I'm going to go watch TV and eat my ice cream. And or the more, hey, honey, go on to bed. I'm going to stay up and do some bills. And about 13 to 30 minutes into that, they're in porn sites and they've lost 3 hours and rolling into bed at 2 in the morning, having masturbated a couple of times to porn. It just gets a hold of you, and the brain pulls you into that when it's been medicated over time. So those are little snippets of things we will talk about in the future, but they are the reality of what we're dealing with. One of the next couple of podcasts that I really would like to do is talk about some of the data just from one porn site that they have researched in and of themselves. It will stun people, some of the numbers. One of the things I hope to do in hopefully our next podcast is have my partner join us from here at the counseling agency at Intact, who specializes in working with those affected by those with addictive, specifically sexually compulsive addictive behaviors, and the trauma that she sees in them.
Wow. No, I'll be looking forward to hearing the information and hearing from Jane as well. So I love talking to Jane when we get the opportunity. So if you're listening to this and you're going, I need to stabilize something. When you think of stabilization, I think of a broken leg and you got to get a cast on it before you can walk again. It's like, if you need help stabilizing something, getting intact, click on the description. We'll have a way to connect with us, and if we have we'll get you connected with Steven or someone on his team or someone that he can direct you to if you need help. If it's something you want to talk about, we'll get you connected to the right people. And as we've talked about in past podcasts and future podcasts, there's a difference in the right and the wrong people who to talk to on things like this. So please feel free to reach out. We'd love to help you out the best we can. Steven, any parting thoughts?
There's hope. There is a level of connection for all of us, from our higher powers to our partners to our children, that most of us have never experienced. Just really want you to hear the hope in this journey. We're with you, and we will help in any way we can.
Absolutely. Looking forward to the next one, Steven. Thank you so much. I always learn so much when we get to talk, and I can't wait to share that with other people, and hopefully this helps a ton of people out. So thank you, Steven.
You are welcome, and I will be praying for your wife's toes.
Thank you, sir. If all of a sudden a pair of steel-toed dancing shoes show up, I'll know where they came from.
Have a blessed time, bro.
Thank you. You as well.